As we're in the prime holiday season right now, kind of sandwiched in between Thanksgiving and Christmas right around the corner, um, I'm reminded of a topic that's really kind of divisive in this family, and it seems to rear its head every time about this time of year for some reason. Um, there's a delicacy you may know of as Reese's peanut butter cups. And if you say it, Jody's already nodding her head at me. If you say it that way, you are correct. The division comes in our family, and it seems to be right along gender lines. All the boys say it that way. All the girls somehow have adapted it to Reese's. I don't know where it came from, but not just Reese's peanut butter cups, but also Reese's Pieces, which is just double wrong. I'm getting the glare already from Jody. Uh, Shelby is probably sneering / snorting, and M is just straight up rolling her eyes, ready to let me have it next time we get together. So that's the big rough spot in our family holidays. So I guess it could be worse.
Welcome to Becoming Chicken Pop, a podcast about our family past and present, or our family in the future.
We discuss family, marriage, faith, and all the things that made us chicken pop.
Tim, I'm kind of disappointed that you're not doing any finger dancing for our intro music.
Yeah, you got 1 week of that. You made a big deal about it, so you shut me down. You know that's how it works.
I thought we were past that after 31 years.
Oh,
no. I will not be making you any treats this Christmas now with Reese's Pieces or
With what?
Reese's peanut butter cups. Reese's.
Oh,
Reese's
boy.
Pieces. It's just a thing. It's just a thing.
I know, we have fun with it, but you're wrong.
I think millions of Americans would side with me. Let's put this to a vote.
That is interesting. Let's.
Podcast listeners, I'm going to throw a poll up after we drop this episode on the correct pronunciation, particularly if you're talking about Reese's Pieces. Like, you have to say Reese's when you say Pieces. Like, it just
Why?
goes to, because it's so fun.
Pieces
Why
is not a
are you
word.
stifling my fun and enjoyment? I mean, it's just the way it is.
I don't think it's stifled at all.
Okay. All right.
It's funny when you hear a commercial, though, where they say Reese's, and you guys just all deny it. Like the company's wrong.
No, it's fine.
Deep breaths. I told you this is divisive.
Oh, all right. Well, that was a fun little story.
Episode 12, Jody?
Yeah.
Another kind of weird number.
Yep.
But we're still doing it. Still
I
having
know.
fun. We had every intention of recording a week or so ago when we were a little more than that, when we were in Cancun for Thanksgiving, which I highly recommend, by the way. It was fantastic.
Yes.
Like just a little dose of sun.
Mm-hmm. Just that
to get
few
you
days.
headed into gray winter.
Yep.
It was great.
Yep.
But there was too much sun, sand, pool, fruity drinks calling, naps.
Yep.
It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but that's what we're learning.
Right.
We try to do it once a week. If it doesn't, who cares?
Right. This is our podcast. We can do what we want. We make the rules.
It's not like our sponsors are going to throw a fit or anything, right?
But we are open to sponsors if you're listening.
Yeah. We'll need a little more than our 5s of listeners again, though.
That's right.
Production note. I noticed as I was producing our last episode that I kept trying to filter out my sniffles. There's that time of year where we're going from fall to winter and we're kind of figuring out if we're doing allergy medicine still.
Right.
So lots of sniffles. So I kept trying to filter it out of my track. And then I realized it was you.
Oh.
There's at least half you.
Wow.
So pardon the professionalism, but there's going to be some sniffles in
I
that last
mean,
episode.
it is kind of podcasting, you know?
Yep.
It's totally
If we
fine.
get a real producer, he can take those
And,
out.
I think it's indicative. We live in Michigan. On Monday, it was 55 degrees, and Wednesday, it was 4 degrees.
Yeah.
You know,
Your sinuses are
sniffles,
just in a boxing
you'd
match all
never
the
know what
time.
you're going to wake up to.
Yep. Hey, I had you probably don't know this, but I had like a proud of you moment this weekend.
Oh,
Started last night, actually.
tell
It
me.
continued this morning.
Okay.
Well, first of all, we're having my designer guys over tonight for a
Having a
little
little Christmas
little
party.
Christmas sort of company Christmas party.
Yeah.
And you are famous for your caramel corn.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who you've ever known who's tried it wants it, especially at Christmas time.
Yep.
So you started working up a batch of that
Yep.
for Joe and Dan and their
Mm-hmm.
families last night, and it's possible that our microwave took a dump in the middle of
It just
you.
stopped heating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know what happened, but you were just like, well, this might be all the popcorn I make.
Right.
That's a big shift from 10, 15 years ago.
Right. Where it was like, run to Home Depot, buy a new microwave, install it so I can make this caramel popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just rolled with it. And then number two was just a few minutes ago this morning.
Mm-hmm.
You looked around and you said, this house is nowhere near ready to have a party. And you're like, but we'll figure it out. Again, big shift
Yeah.
from 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that's just grandma, but I know you've had a very like specific intentional mind shift on that in the
Yes.
last 10 years, and
Yes.
especially with a grandkid. Like, this is life.
Right. We don't have to be perfect, right? Everything doesn't have to be just so. People are more important than the state of your house, than having the exact correct decor. Like, it's more about togetherness in people than it is about how much food, what type of food, what your house looks like, whether there's dog hair on the floor.
Drop by, you're going to see 4 dog toys in the middle of the floor, maybe a
Yes.
shredded animal,
Yeah.
couch cushions all
Askew.
mashed where Tucker rests his neck and looks out the
The
window.
second you properly align those couch cushions, he is up there just knocking them all around. And
So,
yeah.
you're still a boss, but you're a roll with it boss
Well,
these days.
thanks, babe. That means a lot. But I am looking forward to our party tonight. I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah,
And
it always is.
yeah, and we made it really easy to host, and I think our house is set up in like the perfect way to host the kind of gatherings that we like. So I'm excited. The other thing I realized last night, I think I put it all together, that every Christmas party we're attending this year, we are hosting. We got 4 Christmas parties this year.
List them off. What are they?
Well, we've got tonight. We've got our kids on Christmas Eve, and then my family's coming Christmas Eve. Then we've got Christmas Day, and then New Year's Day, we're going to have your whole family here.
I feel like the ones with just our kids aren't as much of a lift. That's a
Yeah, but still, it's Christmas. So there's different expectations when it's Christmas than just a random, everybody come over and go swim in the pool.
but you're just gonna roll with it too, right?
For sure. I already have all my menus planned on my annual spreadsheet. I do. I have a holiday meal spreadsheet where every holiday or party that I've hosted since 2010, I have all the menus, who attended, all that kind of stuff. And then I have the same thing for Christmas presents. It goes back to 2010. What I bought every single person, where I bought it from, how much I spent. Like, spreadsheets are my friend.
I was gonna call you a spreadsheet nerd, but I like a good spreadsheet every now and then.
Who doesn't
Keep
like,
me
I mean,
organized.
come on, right? So the other call out from our last episode, we were talking about it, I think, as you were producing it. I think you were talking about, I can't remember exactly what
We were
context.
talking about like dates in high school and
Yeah.
just other friends that
Yeah.
were kind of part of our life.
And you threw out a friend or somebody that I grew up with.
I said,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that Jimmy Fricciano?
Yeah.
And then you corrected me with his real name.
Timmy Pinicano.
That was so
It
close.
was really close.
Jimmy Fricacciano, Timmy Pernicano.
That's right.
That's pretty good for me. I
That is
came pretty
pretty
close.
good. I'll give you that one
I
for
think
sure.
my name is funnier, but it was close.
Yeah. All right, weekly prompt. I know you mentioned to me this morning you've got a lot of smile moments, so I think let's start rolling through those.
Well, first of all, you said you were thinking about putting in something that's hot on social media right now. What'd you call that? Oh,
We listen and we don't judge.
oh boy, it made my eyes roll.
We don't have to do that this week,
Okay,
though.
because we don't have a talking stick or a feelings chair.
Yeah, I think we should do that as like a story.
But a couple smiles that I had, and they all came from you, I think, pretty much. First of all, I was thinking back on some of our um, enduring to endearing
Yes.
items that we had done in the
Mm-hmm.
past,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing some laundry, and I realized you've gone through this phase over several years of everything just used to be inside out
Yep.
in the laundry.
Yep.
Then it was inside out with a t-shirt
Yep.
and the sleeves out
Right.
of it.
Like a sweatshirt with a
Yeah.
t-shirt
So
attached.
then it was like wrestling to pull those
Uh-huh.
items apart.
Uh-huh.
And now you've just gone to like one sleeve inside out, one right, one pant leg inside out, one out. So now I have to decide, am I going to take the time to fix this? Or the good thing is you just hang everything up now, so I just lay it on the edge of the bed
Yep.
and you get to figure it out. Plus you have some freaky shirts that like have a knot in them and they're twisted around and it's like folding a fitted bed sheet, some of your shirts. So anyway, that kind of made me grr in the past, but now I just kind of laugh at it.
Yeah.
Throw it over to you.
Thanks.
You want to do one?
Um, so this is something that came out of Mexico, but I was reminded of it Thursday night. We went to Cancun, our favorite little local Mexican place with all the kids, just impromptu. Like 30 minutes. Anybody want to go to Cancun? And everybody was in. And it's Mexico grilled cheese, aka a quesadilla. But that's how we got Miles to eat a quesadilla while we were in Mexico. We told him it was a Mexico grilled cheese, and he pronounces Mexico.
Put it on the list of things we'll keep saying that he'll grow out of.
Yeah, Mexico grilled cheese. That's what I'll call quesadillas from now on.
Related to that, I kind of mentioned it that night, and I said, you wanna text the kids while I'm doing something else?" I swear I turned around and like before I took a step, you're like, "Shelby's in." I don't, I don't even know how you could text that fast. And then it seemed like she responded before you had even texted. So that made me laugh out loud,
Yeah.
honestly.
Shelby's usually the first one to raise her hand when it's about food or dinner plans, that type of thing. Yep.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another one from you this week. You you said to me kind of proudly, you were like, "I'm really racking up a bunch of racketing cash this week." And I stopped for a second. I said, "What you really mean is you're spending a bunch of money." I said, "Is that girl math?" She said, "Absolutely."
That's right. I mean, I have like $78 in Rakuten cash from my Christmas shopping.
Which means you needed to spend how much to get that cash back?
Well, no. See, the genius of it was there was a couple things I got 15% cash back. Like normally you get 2%, 3%, 5%. But there was two different things and they were high. They were like Miles' big Christmas present. Like, and I got 15% cash back on tickets to Paw Patrol Live. So that was a big chunk.
Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Girl math.
It is girl math.
Yeah.
But still, I'm looking forward to getting that payout in January.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jody. Hey, that's what you do to me all the time. Okay, Tim.
That's true.
I just fired one back at you.
It doesn't work as well.
So let's move on from that.
Okay.
Um another one was actually when we were going to our Mexican restaurant, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. I had on some blue joggers, of course. I had some other tint of blue shirt,
Yep.
and then I grabbed my blue vest. It was a different blue, and I
Yeah.
put it on. I said, "Is this too many blues?" You looked me from head to toe, and then you said, "Meh, doesn't make me cringe." So I guess that's what we moved on from. Oh, looks
Uh,
good to it doesn't make me cringe.
yeah.
Let's go get Mexican food.
Well,
So then
and
I think I threw on
then
another blue
you
hat, and we
did. You threw on
hit
like
the road.
a two-tone Lions hat. Yeah, with yet another blue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fine. It did make me cringe. So this is probably from, I don't know, a week or two ago. But I remember I was walking through the house and all of a sudden noticed this Christmas ornament on my tree that I did not put on there. It was a little can of Diet Coke. It was a Diet Coke Christmas ornament, and it just took me back. Like, did you put that Diet Coke ornament on the tree? And you started to laugh, and you were like, I put it on there days ago. I've just been waiting for you to notice. And I just walked right by it several times.
Yep.
But it's like right in the middle of the tree, right on the front, like proudly showing its Diet Coke logo.
But you know what? That's the difference between you and me. Not to make this serious now or anything, but I look at every little detail
Yeah.
in things, like a Christmas tree, every little
Mm-hmm.
ornament, every little texture in a painting, stuff like that. You're like big picture.
Yep.
Just glance at it on your way by.
Yeah. Does it check it off the list? Great.
Yep.
Yeah. It is a big difference between you and I. I will say, as annoying as it's been, the last couple weeks is all of my Christmas present deliveries have been rolling in and stacking up in kind of our dining room area. I do love seeing the wrapping paper and that's one of my smiles for the week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're eventually going to jump into some things about our grandparents and things that we want to emulate
Yeah.
for our grandkids.
Yeah.
But leading into that, I think I was, first of all, just hit with a bunch of little random memories of my grandparents. For some reason, I don't know if it's something we talked about in a previous episode, but they just were kind of all flooding in for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we both kind of tried to remember a few of them. I'm just going to hit you with a couple real quick
Okay.
from Pete and Mary Bestervelt. This is my mom's parents,
Okay.
Judy Bepler, my mom, her parents, Pete and Mary Bestervelt. One of them was just the other day, again at the eye doctor. And
You got to stop going to the eye doctor, Tim.
I know, old people and the eye doctor are just giving me the stories. But I heard this couple next to me, they were talking to each other, but super loud. Everyone could hear them.
Yeah.
And I heard the lady in her best Midwest, oh yeah, they went up to, oh yeah, I think they went up to Vegas last spring or something. And it reminded me my grandparents always said up to,
Yes.
no matter what they were doing. One of the famous ones was a restaurant. Oh, we went up to Shrinks.
Yeah.
Or
They didn't say it with that
up
accent.
to the
but-
restaurant.
right.
Yeah. But sorry, I missed that one. Up to the restaurant.
Restaurant. That's
Yep.
how they pronounced it. Yes.
So, I mean, still kind of on our smile moment. Those
I know.
those are the little things that just make me smile about them.
But the up to makes no sense, especially for the lady in the eye doctor's office. Up to Vegas?
Yeah.
Vegas is down.
I think a lot of people do that, but
But it is. Yeah. It's a
I feel like it's more of a Midwest thing.
maybe.
Let me just hit a couple other with my grandparents, specifically Pete Bestervelt.
Okay.
Just little things that he would always say, and I always wonder if I'm going to get to this as a grandpa, as a pop. Just automatic responses to things. Honestly, Zach does it already.
Yeah.
There's certain things where he's going to say
Yes.
it. If you ever if somebody was tripped or did anything kind of awkward, he would say, "Come over here and I'll pick you up." Remember that one?
Don't remember that
Said
one.
that all the time. One you probably don't know because you weren't around when we had landlines all the time. The phone rang in the house, automatic. Murphy's Pool Hall, 8 Ball speaking, every single time. And then there's the ones that we have adopted,
Yeah.
whether we wanted to or not.
Mm-hmm.
They refer to things as a honey of or a peach of.
Yeah.
So now we're always saying,
The peach of a day.
well, that's just a few from my grandpa. What do you have?
So I'm going to start with my dad's parents, Milo and Kay Gilbert. And there's just like a couple things about their house in Detroit. So they live just off 7 Mile in Detroit. There's some things about that house and being that house that are just so ingrained in my memory and like wrapped up in my memories of them. So we always came in the back door and you kind of went up 3 steps and you were in the kitchen, right? It was a very common design house layout at the time. And my grandma had this stove and she had a warming tray that was like above the stove. So where you would see microwaves now, it was just kind of like this tray and it was a warming tray. And that's where she kept her cookies. And she always had cookies. And one of the types of cookies she always, always, always had on hand were pecan sandies.
She made those?
No,
Oh,
they were store-bought cookies.
okay.
And then I think there were usually some type of fig Newton. And then, the fruit Newtons got to be popular. So then she kind of would buy those, but there was always pecan sandies in the kitchen. There was always classical music
I got to
or
tell you, I think those are like the Tootsie Roll of
yes.
cookies to
I
me.
mean, I don't know that I ever ate one, but they always had them. So obviously they enjoyed them.
Hmm.
She probably had one with a cup of tea mid-morning, in her china teacup. Um, they always had classical music playing in the living room. And if it wasn't classical music, it was because Paul Harvey was on.
Mm.
Yep. I remember listening to Paul Harvey at their house for sure.
Are you going to do it?
No,
Paul Harvey?
I can't do that.
Good day.
Yeah.
Old people will get that one.
All right. So I think some of my favorite memories from my grandparents were actually time that we spent in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So my grandpa grew up in the Upper Peninsula in Brimley, Michigan, and we would go up there for a week every summer. We would take our trailer, my grandparents would take their trailer, and then my grandparents eventually built a house up there and lived up there in the nice weather, and then they went to Arizona for the winter. And one of the things that they did was in the morning, and you probably saw this happen once, the one time you were up there when Zach was a baby, but my grandpa took a flat, I don't know, 2x6, 2x8, and he tied a rope around it and he would drag it around on their lawn every morning to knock the dew off the grass so it would dry off faster.
Did I meet them?
Maybe,
I didn't.
oh, I think no, you didn't meet my grandpa. My grandma's still, you were up at that house. My grandma was
Yeah, I
still
remember
alive.
that, but I don't remember
Oh, you don't?
the
Knocking
lawn
the dew off
drag.
the grass? Oh, yeah.
Mm-mm.
It was one of those things. And just, it was just a classic thing. And so they also had a full-size van. It was also like a butterscotch and poop Ford Econoline
Sure.
van. And you would have to move where you parked the van at different times of day so that it was always in the shade. So it didn't get too hot in case you decided you had to go anywhere you didn't want to get into a hot van. So they would move the van throughout the day to make sure that it was always under a tree in the shade.
Retired people in the UP got to have something to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
apparently.
But just like very distinct memories. What else you got?
Well, I had a couple things on my grandma, Mary Bestervelt.
Mm.
Um, but a couple things that came to mind as you said that. They lived in the same house my entire life
Yeah.
until my grandpa died, and then my grandma finally moved in with us for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um, so I do have that memory.
Yeah.
I don't really remember where my other grandparents lived all that much, but that was one little thing that came out of what you said. The other
Mm-hmm.
one was my grandma always had like these almond some kind of cookie that were in the shape of a windmill.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if she got them just because they were in the shape of a windmill.
Because they were
Very
Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah.
Westervelt, very Dutch.
Yeah.
And again, I would never choose that cookie, but at their house, since it's all they had, you ate the stale windmill cookies. Another thing about my grandma, and I think I just thought of this morning, is she had the smirk when she would talk.
She
She had
did.
said a lot of things out of the side of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really notice it till she was older and didn't really think about it to now. And the tie-in, do you know how many times a day I probably use the smirk emoji in Slack?
I do too. I'm a smirker.
It's funny when you don't talk to people face to face, those are kind of important.
The
Like, hey,
emojis,
I'm just joking.
for sure.
Hey, this is a lighthearted comment.
Yeah. Something else along those lines that your grandma did that I had just came to me. Um, she did this little head nod kind of thing where she'd tip her head from side to side, but kind of subtly. And it reminds me of the church lady character, Dana Carvey's church lady, how she'd purse her lips and kind of do that with her head. Your grandma had a version of that she did when she was like thinking about something or like, I, I don't think so.
Well, isn't that special? You gonna make me
Exactly.
do all the impressions today?
Yes. Your
All
grandma
right.
Bestervelt had her own church lady version that she adopted.
All right.
Well,
Well, it was the same hairdo.
true.
Probably wore some of the similar clothing.
Similar glasses,
Yep.
sweater sets. Yep.
Oh, the other thing about her
Yeah.
that we were talking about the other day, Zach was going to prom junior year or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and she was around. She's like, "Oh, are they gonna have an orchestra at the prom? Are they gonna have an orchestra at the dance?"
Yeah. So a couple of my Grandma Gilbert's recipes, because Grandma Bestervelt, Grandma Gilbert were twins, right? Um, so the thing about my grandma is she was a Canadian. She was born in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. And then she didn't move to the US until she married my grandpa.
That was such a Gilbert thing to say. The thing about her is
She
she
was a
was a
Canadian.
Canadian.
So anyway, when they moved back to the UP after they were retired, they had to sell their house in Detroit. It was just anyway, that's a story for another day. But in Sault Ste. Marie, when you live close to the border, at the time, and this was probably in the 80s, late 80s, a lot of people, a lot of Canadians in the Sioux would come to the US for two things. They would come and they would grocery shop and they would get gas because gas was cheaper in the US than it was in Canada. So they would come across the border. You didn't need a passport, enhanced driver's license, anything at the time. Anybody could come and go. And so if you went into Sault Ste. Marie on the weekend and you had to get gas, you were gonna be in line. And my grandma, who was the most proper little lady, she would say, kind of a smirk out the side of her mouth under her breath, "Damn Canadians." Making lines for everyone.
Now we're in trouble with the Canadians.
Oh, but she was a Canadian. That was the irony of
Oh,
the
okay.
situation, right? She was a Canadian. So
She had a
anyway, it was
pass.
just one of those funny, funny things about her that I just remember. And first of all, that she would say a swear word, and then she was picking on her own heritage. Yeah.
Another thing, did you switch grandparents in there?
No, no,
Or is
no.
it we're still on the
I'm
same one?
still, yeah, I've got a
Okay.
couple more Gilbert.
Okay. So a couple more on Pete and Mary, Westervelt. I mean, this one was just kind of awesome. They would watch pretty much every Tiger baseball game
Yeah.
or listen to it.
Yep.
Actually, did you know they went to spring
I
training all the time
know.
too?
I know.
Yeah,
Because they would winter in Florida.
they were serious fans.
They were.
But before the day of every micro statistic on your TV screen,
And before smartphone apps that
yeah,
tracked all those for you.
they had their little scorekeeping books,
Yes.
and they would track every ball, strike, hit, everything
Every
like
wild
official
pitch,
scorekeeping.
yeah.
And then they just had these volumes of them that they
Yes.
just kept around.
That we uncovered after your
Yep.
grandma died and we were cleaning out her house.
But you know what? They did it together, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of little slightly off color things with your your grandma's comment, there's there were also these. They had a house on this kind of junky little lake, but it was amazing. It was like a um, couple trailers stuck together with a concrete patio out front.
Yeah.
But it had a huge lawn going out to this lake that you didn't really want to swim in, and it wasn't a sports lake, but kind of just a fishing lake.
Mm-hmm.
But fond memories of it anyway.
Yeah.
But in that house, and I don't know if Pete or Kath discovered it, but then eventually it was just kind of a thing. They had these little ceramic frogs sitting up there, and if you turned them over, they were both anatomically correct, which was just, I'm a middle school kid. I think they maybe had it when I was just starting high school
Yeah.
before they got rid of it, but it was always a big joke. Look
Yeah.
at these frogs.
Uh-huh. And the
Um,
fact that your grandparents had them
my
and
grandparents,
thought
yep.
they were funny.
The
Yeah.
ones that were supposed to be straight laced, we were
Right.
supposed to be behaved around,
Right.
which we found out was not the case as we got older.
Definitely not with your grandpa, especially.
Yep. But let me wrap them up
Okay.
before you wrap yours up. Some of the awesome things I remember about them were that they were just highly social, loved everyone,
Mm-hmm.
super involved in their church, and beloved in their church.
Yeah.
Everybody knew them,
Yes.
and it was really their family most of the year
Yeah.
in Battle Creek. And then also, um, it's probably come up again at some point. My grandpa was in World War
2.
II, and he was on the USS Lunga Point, which was a huge aircraft carrier.
Yep.
And he was a cook slash
He was a
gunner,
baker.
baker slash gunner.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite the
So his
shift
day
in your
job was
day.
he was a baker unless they were under attack, and then he had to run out to his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, tons of guys that became family in that situation,
Yeah.
obviously. So I think just about every year they would have a big reunion. They would travel sometimes to Hawaii, sometimes
They went all over.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they were always doing that and they were always up for it. They were pretty adventurous people.
Well, the interesting part of that story, and I'm going to Gilbert you here, is your grandpa didn't talk about the war. Like, and he didn't go to those reunions for many, many years. The first one that they went to was in 1994. It was the year Zach was born. And they had just returned from their first reunion with the Lunga Point crew
Hmm,
when Zach was born. They came home, took their stuff home from the airport, and drove to Lansing to the hospital to meet Zach for the first time.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting Gilbert moment. And then your grandpa started to talk a little bit more about, and he opened us about it. I remember him telling stories about it and being dive bombed by kamikaze pilots out in the Pacific because they were stationed in the Pacific Ocean, um, South Pacific, in a very, very volatile area in time during the war.
That Yeah, I was saying that's probably a expanded section and episode
Yeah.
to come.
Mm-hmm.
But to hit on that, I did I think I did an interview with him one time for something at school. And the only part that stands out to me, he said he was in his gunner position
Yeah.
and there was a torpedo coming straight at him
Uh-huh.
and he thought that was it. And then it veered off and went
Yeah.
out into the ocean.
Wow.
Wow, we really trailed off on that one. But
Wow.
yeah, that'll be we have a whole box of stuff from his
Yeah.
right from his draft on through a bunch of other stuff. We'll have to get
Letters
some of
that
that
he
stuff
wrote to
out
your
there.
grandma, the ship weekly newsletters, very cool stuff that they saved. Okay, so a few more things about Milo and Kay. So their house in Detroit, where my dad grew up, was right across the street from a golf course. And the cool thing about that was in the winter time, our families would all gather over there and everybody had a toboggan and we would go tobogganing on the golf course because they had some pretty decent like hills and stuff in this golf course. And so we would just literally carry our toboggans across Lasha Road and hop the fence into the golf course. And, my grandma would have like soup and hot chocolate when we came back, but that was always a really fun memory. There's always any handful of cousins that would be there, and it was a really fun time. And then we would do family reunions in the UP. Before they actually built their house, we started to do those. So we got to know, like, my cousins would be there, and then some of my dad's cousins had kids that were our age, and we really got to know kind of some of our second and third cousins, which was really fun. But there's a couple things about my grandma that really stand out, and these are all cooking related things, which, obviously that's something I enjoy. That's probably why all these memories stick out to me. But The woman could peel potatoes with a knife, and I remember as a kid watching her just peel potatoes with a knife faster than I could even imagine doing it with a potato peeler. And they were so thin and perfect. It was just like I'm in awe of women that can do that. I still can't peel a potato with a knife without making myself bloody. And then I remember she was at our house for something or another, and one of her things that she always made was coleslaw. And she made homemade coleslaw. Like she would shred the cabbage and, all the things, but she made her own coleslaw dressing. And she could do it just off the top of her head. She just grabbed the stuff she needed, no measurement, no whatever. Stick a finger in it. Yep, that tastes right. We're good. you know?
You picked that up for
I
sure.
totally did. I just remember being as a kid like, wow, that's a superpower. So definitely something I picked up on. And then her other like famous thing that she would bring to, I think every birthday party we had was her Jello pretzel salad. Oh, so good. If you're from the Midwest, you know what I'm talking about.
All I can think of with that is the lime jello mold with cat food in it from
From
Christmas
Christmas
Vacation.
Vacation.
I probably wouldn't be able to eat that
No.
pretzel
But
jello
you've
salad.
had pretzel. Kath makes it sometimes. So I'm sure you've had. I mean, it's crushed pretzels with like a cream cheese and Cool Whip layer, and then Jello and strawberries on the top.
Okay, as
It's
long as it's
delightful.
not
It's like
lime.
dessert. Yeah, so good. So anyway, those are some fond memories of one side of our grandparents. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Bepplers on
We
your
are
side.
running long on this, but that's okay. It's
Yeah,
our podcast, right?
yeah.
All
Let's
right.
talk about Celoid.
C. Lloyd and Alice Bepler. This
Yeah.
is my dad, Richard Bepler's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mentioned I kind of remember the outside of the few places where they lived, but they were really bouncing around for a while there. And I don't know the story with that,
Yeah.
but I remember one little house with those classic little red awnings over the windows,
Yep.
and then an apartment, and then some other duplex that they lived in. I don't know. It was weird, kind of jumped around. But
Mm-hmm.
some of the little quirky things that my grandpa that just stuck in my head.
He had a lot of quirky things.
Yeah. He was a fun guy.
He was
It
a
was
fun
fun
guy.
for a grandkid.
I'm glad I knew him.
Um, and I still do this one. It's sarcastically, but now it's just becoming a thing. If you drop anything in the kitchen or anything loud drops,
Yep.
you got to say, "Somebody dropped a dollar bill."
Right.
And honestly, I don't know if that was my other grandpa or both of them. Maybe it was just a Battle Creek thing,
Maybe.
but I'm pretty sure I remember C. Lloyd doing it.
Uh-huh.
And then just lots of, I don't know if it was actual German or gibberish. So if anybody speaks German and I'm swearing right now, my apologies. I have no idea what it means. But he would walk around saying, "Ich demastodisch Desgedeski." I remember that one for some reason. Well, he must have said it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ach, the Leberstrazak. I don't know what that means either. Might be I love you in that one.
And you didn't think to drop it into Google Translate. Interesting.
Well, it's kind of hard to figure out how to spell it.
Oh, that's true. You can talk to it.
I'll ask Kath. I
Okay.
think she may have looked some.
Okay.
That's why I think Octaleber might be.
You have to ask Ethan the next time we see him. Ethan's fluent in German.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That could be a surprise of what it means.
He might really enjoy that conversation.
Yeah. The other one, he'd always say, horse feathers. And I don't know if that was when something went bad or just something he said, but he said it all the time.
Yeah.
And when he was laughing, it was, shucks. And I know Kath has picked that one up.
Uh-huh.
I don't use that one as much, but
Nope.
she always liked that one. I'll take a break there on Grandpa Bepler. What do you have?
So my other set of grandparents, my mom's parents, Max and Arlene Elliott, and oh my goodness, so many memories. But one of my favorite things about their house was they had a refrigerator with a freezer on the bottom, which is very common these days. It's definitely made a comeback, but at the time, I didn't know anybody else that had that. And the reason I thought it was so cool was because I had access to the ice cream all the time.
Mm.
It was right at my level. Time I was a little kid. So, one of the things that I remember about their house is like getting to make my own ice cream sundaes. So, my first day of kindergarten, my mom picked me up because we hadn't moved into our new house. She was driving me back and forth from Dearborn to Woodhaven so I could start school and I didn't have to change schools a few months in. She picked me up and we went to my grandma and grandpa's house. And I got to make ice cream sundae, celebrate my first day of kindergarten. I thought that was the best thing ever.
It's a good grandpa thing,
Right?
grandparent thing.
But having like that freezer, and then I always remember there was always Five Alive, a pitcher of Five Alive in the refrigerator. Did you ever drink Five Alive as a kid?
I remember it.
It was like frozen orange juice, but it was, I think there might have been something other than oranges in it. But my
I
grandma
think
would
there was
buy,
less than oranges in it.
yeah,
I think it was some kind
it
of
was, it
processed
came in a
thing.
frozen can, and then you just mix it up with water in a pitcher and it'd be in the refrigerator because my grandma's favorite drink was a screwdriver. So she would drink Five Alives with vodka as her drink. Now, she wasn't a lush. It's not like she drank them all the time, but if she had a drink, that's what it was. So there's always Five Alive in the refrigerator.
Well, a couple other things I remember about my grandpa. Um, and again, I think when I would hang out with him, I was with grandpa.
Yes.
He was the guy you had fun with and played with. My grandma would be cooking or doing whatever. It's really weird because I just really don't remember a lot of what she did, and I think it's because I was just always with my grandpa. We were
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
Time I showed up, we were playing. But riding in the back of the car with him a lot, wherever we were going for dinner or whatever.
Up to Shrinks.
I don't think they went up to shrinks.
Mm.
They probably went up to speeds.
Or Bill Naps.
I just remember some things that he would do where he would sing this song all the time. It was I know enough that it was called "Sing a Song of Cities."
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a really old song, I guess, or something he knew. But he would like to sing a song of, and then you can imagine
Uh-huh.
how cities turned out when
Uh-huh.
he was singing it that way.
Kath still does that.
Yeah. Um, and then just like weird stuff. He would he was always telling me about stories from when he was a kid, when he was um
He was a
in
wild thing.
when he was in school, which was 100 years ago, as far as I was concerned at the
Ooh,
time.
late 30s,
Yeah.
1940s. Yeah.
So his stories would often start with me and Bus Jones are cutting up in the back of class. And honestly, I remember hearing that so many times. Such a random thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then he'd tell a story and he'd end it with, I about died laughing. And I know he said that all the time too, which I loved. And also with that, some of his stories were about them just in the hallway or stairway boxing
Yeah.
at lunchtime or on breaks for fun.
Yeah.
Like we would stand around playing hacky sack or throwing a football around in high school.
Right.
They would box, punch each other in the face.
Yeah.
And they just let it go. It's just how it was at the time.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things I do remember that was very cool that is something that makes me want to be that kind of grandparent is I'd go there once every summer, I think, at least when they were in Battle Creek for I think it was a week maybe. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But first we would pick blueberries always. My grandpa and I would take the train from Battle Creek to Kalamazoo. Then my grandma would pick us up there just to take a train ride.
Yeah.
And then other little things that stand out, he would always give me when I'd go there to stay, give me a wife beater to wear for my pajamas.
Uh-huh.
Is it can you say that? Everybody knows what I'm
Probably
talking
not,
about.
but everybody a white tank top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're canceled.
Yeah. But wearing one of those, he had a gigantic flashlight that was flashlight slash weapon he'd put next to the bed. And then he'd always have me kneel next to the bed with him to pray before he went to bed.
Aw.
So just a few things that stuck out from C. Lloyd Beppler. I got a couple things on Alice in a minute, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I think, back to Max and Arlene, their house was the gathering spot. Their house, they entertained, they had friends, they were the super, like everybody loved my grandparents. they were just the people that you wanted to hang out with. And you could come as you were. My grandma was not the world's best housekeeper. She didn't care. She was just like, just come, you know? So I'm trying to embody that.
But side note, weren't those the friends you loved to go to when you were in
Yes.
high school?
Well, and obviously because yeah, I mean, that's just the way they lived. But, I remember like, I think the thing that I remember most about my grandma and grandpa Elliot were that I always felt so included in everything, right? It wasn't, I mean, just whatever they were doing, whether it was something fun or not fun or whatever, like I was always included and welcome to help. So if it was like changing light bulbs on the front porch step with my grandpa, sure, you can climb up on the ladder and try it, or my grandma making cheesecake for whatever dinner we were having. If she was making cheesecake and I was going to be there, she always bought an extra block of cream cheese and would just let me go at it with a spoon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or she let me clean her bathroom, which basically meant filling up the sink with soapy water and washing all of her pretty perfume bottles because they were pretty and I like to play with them, you
Did
know?
she let you just eat butter from the stick? Or am
Oh,
I
for
thinking of one of our
sure.
kids?
Like whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One time, my grandpa, so I remember on the weekends, we would wind up there on the weekends a lot. I would say probably most weekends. And we would do like a late breakfast. And my grandpa always cooked breakfast. And so I was always grab a chair, pull it up. I was always at the counter flipping pancakes, making eggs with my grandpa, like whatever. It was my grandpa and I making breakfast in the morning. And one time he gave me a carton of eggs and asked me to crack the eggs into a bowl. And then about died laughing as I picked the first egg up before I even started to crack it because they were hard boiled eggs. And that was his joke that he was playing on me, which is great. But like I remember specifically, he started laughing before I even tried to crack the egg. He just couldn't contain himself. He was so excited. So like planning ahead to like create those moments, that's
Mm-hmm.
the kind of things that they did. And I remember um they always sat in the dining room. So their dining room opened up to the living room. So you could see the TV and there was a big window and they just always sat around the dining room table. And everybody had their spots. And I remember I was always welcome at the table, at the grown-up table, and they'd be having conversations and doing whatever. And I would get so sleepy as a little kid. I would just lay down, put my head on the table and close my eyes just because I wanted to continue to listen to them and I would fall asleep at the table like time after time. But I just wanted to be wrapped up in that
Mm-hmm.
moment and they were like, "Whatever. Totally. You can take a nap at the table. Whatever." You know. So,
Yep.
those are some really sweet memories.
I mentioned that Alice, again, my dad's mother, my grandma Alice Pepler, like not a ton that I remember about her because, like I said, I always seemed like I always, you go with grandpa,
Mm,
you go with grandpa.
mhm.
Um, but a couple of things I remember was she was a teacher in kind of a rough district in Battle Creek for years and years, and all the all the little boys who were in trouble loved her, and she somehow ruled over that classroom and made things work. I mean, that's what we heard anyway.
Yeah.
But it kind of translated also to there was like no secret somehow that she was a boy grandma,
Yeah.
and I'm sure my sister Kathy loved that.
Uh,
I didn't see it, but I was a boy grandchild, so
right.
I don't know. That's a little weird, but it's something that I remember.
And it was well known about her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess even you knew it.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing was, and I just remember this one this morning. I have a clear vision of one of the houses we were in, and as my grandpa and I were headed down to play pool or something in the basement, um, she was making M&M cookies.
Mm.
So that was one of her apparently
Mhm.
one of her big things. I
Mhm.
know I enjoyed those. And then the other one you probably shouldn't do these days.
Mhm.
She would bake us on her birthday a pretty big chocolate cake, and it was laced with dimes,
Like the coins.
the coins. So birthday boy got all the dimes, but you had to dodge them all. Make sure that you didn't bite into one or swallow them. So every bite, you were like kind of just mashing around to find the dimes and picking them out for me. So,
Oh,
but I thought that was the coolest thing in the world at the time. And then, unfortunately, a lot of my other memories of her are after she was sick.
yeah,
And
with ALS. And the last few things that I'll mention about Max and Arlene Elliott, you know, they were fun, and they looked for ways to like have fun and engage. And so a couple of the things that I remember is one of them that I don't even know what these things are called, but do you remember like the little birds that would
oh
tip
yeah,
and drink water?
mm-hmm.
They had one of those, and they would just bring it out, and we would just, I don't know what those things are called, why, but they had one, and we would have so much fun with that. And then my grandpa used to play this game where he had an old thimble, and we would play hide the thimble. And he would hide the thimble somewhere in like the dining room, living room area, and we would, or us kids, we would have to go find it. And then the other thing that is in, even my sister, she just mentioned this. We were together a week or so ago, and she even mentioned this. So they had a park at the end of their street. And so we used to go down to the park and play, and there were on the far end of the park, there was railroad tracks. And so we would hike up there, and there were kind of woods around the railroad tracks and walk on the railroad tracks. And I don't know why that was a thing, but it was a thing. But that's where we would go to hunt hippopotamus.
Sure.
So he had us convinced and would tell stories about the hippopotamus. He knew they were friends, like, and we would have to go hunt the hippopotamus, and we would go on these hippopotamus hunts. Um, so super
In case
fun
you're wondering, you just set a world record for saying hippopotamus
in such a short
in a
period
30
of time.
second period.
I mean, I'm good.
Well
Your
done.
girl's girl. Yeah. So anyway, those are some of the memories I think that stick out for my grandparents that I think as we kind of shared these memories, I think the thing that I want to come away with in this episode is, I think we definitely have core memories of our grandparents and our experience in childhood with our grandparents that has shaped who we want to be as grandparents, and because this podcast is becoming Chicken Pop, our grandparents' name, this is about like how we enter that phase of life, what our intentions are, you know, and what we want our grandkids to remember about us. So I think, Tim, how I'd kind of like to wrap this episode up is let's talk a little bit about what we actually hope our grandchildren remember about us. Maybe they're going to be telling their kids about us someday, or their grandkids about us someday. What do you hope that they remember?
Well, I've mentioned this before, and it basically whatever makes him or them laugh.
Mm,
My experience is only with Miles right now, but
right.
I am I am beyond the whole self-conscious thing
Yep.
for the most part when it comes to them.
Yeah.
If I can get them to laugh, it's on the table. Whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, I want them to remember us being accessible and present. Like we were just always around, available. And like when we were together, we were fully present with them in the moment, that
Hmm.
we weren't distracted by our phones, by our life, by making sure everything was perfect, you know?
I think that's directly tied to one that I was thinking of is just always listening to them like they're the most important person in the world at
Hmm.
that time. I mean that should be a goal with just about anybody, but
Yeah.
with your grandkids it just seems like another reminder and make sure that that's where I am.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I think you and I are in the same wavelength. I want them to remember sharing snacks with Pop. That's like Miles' thing. If he has a snack, if he's at our house and he has a snack, he gets one for you too. Like it's just your thing.
Uh, We were on the same line with that one too. Um, just that sharing a snack or anything at dinner is just a no-brainer, of
Yeah.
course, you know?
Yep.
I mean, Zach and Shelb are very good about wanting him to ask, but
Mm-hmm.
my I'm the happiest when he just reaches over and takes some of my fries or
Right.
takes whatever he wants or a drink of whatever I have.
Yeah.
So
I want our grandchildren to remember like impromptu ice cream dates and pool parties. Like just spur of the moment because we can. Those are the kind of things I want them to remember. Like they could just show up and we would just make something fun happen.
it's funny how much these are overlapping. We did them separately, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not a surprise. But
Yeah.
one of the things I had was just a sure, let's do it. You know,
When they
he
have an
wants
idea.
it's it's raining or it's cold outside, but he wants to go check for monsters in the barn. Let's do it.
Uh-huh.
But that I mean that ties in exactly with what you were
Yeah.
saying. Come get me, take me for ice cream. Let's do it.
Yep.
You know,
Because
there's
really, what's
time,
more important?
yeah, and not a regret, but when you're younger in life and work is busier and busier,
Yep.
unfortunately, you don't always do that with your own kids. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
hope we did. I hope they have good memories, a lot of that, but that's the great thing about grandparents. Hopefully, they have
The
a little more
perspective,
time and,
the
yeah,
time.
and the perspective and the
Right.
time under their belt
Yeah.
to let's just do this.
Yes. Let's prioritize it.
Within reason, grandkids. Not, let's go get me a trail boss.
Well, I I think that you and I are on the same page about grandparenting and what that journey looks like and how we want to be available and show up in their lives. And, we're almost 3 years in. So far, so good.
Well, you left one out, and I hope this comes across in our podcast in general. As goofy as we get,
Yes.
um, as strange as some stories get, that we love Jesus and we wanted them to see that in us.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
again, another goal for anyone,
Yes.
but it comes to the surface when you're thinking of your kids and grandkids.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, this has been a juicy one. Let's wrap up this episode. Tell me what you're reading or listening to this week.
as I mentioned, we're headed into the holiday season, so we're in that magic window of Christmas music. So we have it's a great thing I love about streaming services now these that
Yeah.
we have our own little albums put together of everything.
Yep.
So our Christmas playlist gets lots of run in the car and at home right
Mm-hmm.
now. Um, but specifically, Chris Renzema ended up on my repeat in the car this week. I guess I was doing a lot of running around or something. I was in the truck a fair amount. Anyway, one of his songs I had just over and over and over, and then I thought, wonder if he has some Christmas music. So I checked his page. He had one that just came out, and he's a good Michigan boy from Grand Rapids. So, um, a lot of the themes of his songs were Midwestern and snow,
Mm-hmm.
and I like him anyway. But just having that common
It's even
feel
more
around um, Michigan and snow and
traditions
hating
and
it and loving it, and
mm-hmm.
yeah. And one of his songs is talking about maybe we'll talk about being in Mexico next year, but in the back of our mind, we always know we want to be here
Mm-hmm.
at Christmas time.
Yeah.
So, and then another one with music is Zach sends me songs every now and then, and lately it's for math rock, which we had to look up. But you won't enjoy this, but it's very strange rhythms and time signatures and really stuff like drums, Jody. It's
Mm-hmm.
just math, so you probably wouldn't love it.
Ugh.
Ugh. But pretty interesting. You can't
Yep.
listen to too much of it because it all starts sounding the same. But
Mm-hmm.
that was mine this week. So how about
Cool.
you?
So there's two songs, and neither one of them are Christmas songs, but I feel like there's been some specific lyrics that are just running through my head the last week or so. And so this morning, I literally woke up and I could just hear This Is Our God by Phil Wickham. This is our God. This is who he is. He loves us. And it was just like on repeat in my brain. I woke up to that this morning. And it's not the first time this week. And then the other song, and I literally have woken up to this song at least twice in the last 2 weeks. It's Great Are You, Lord, All Sons and Daughters. And it's like the chorus, it's your breath in our lungs. And like there's something about that line that I just keep hearing in my head over and over and over again. It's your breath in our lungs.
Hmm.
Just really hitting this week. So
Wow, you weren't a read this week. You
I
were
wasn't.
on the music
I know. But I've
rerun.
just like those two specific lyrics, like they just are on repeat in my brain lately. So
Well, also one that just dropped this week was The Gift by Maverick City.
yeah. So good.
Yeah. You just got to listen to the guy singing at the beginning of that one.
Yeah.
And then
And then Naomi comes in.
we do the miles at the end. One more time.
Well, this has been a fun trip down memory lane. But let's tie this up with a bow for now and say, future fam, in case you listen to this someday and we've never met,
We love you.